Hello and welcome back to Allie Bakes, where I am baking my way through the Cordon Bleu Pastry School textbook. As of today, I am so excited to announce that we are officially halfway through our biscuits and small cakes chapter, and we are celebrating with these mini Sicilian Pistachio-Cherry Financiers. Starting out, I am preheating my oven to 356 degrees Fahrenheit. After that, we have 40 grams of ground almonds, 110 grams of icing sugar, 2 teaspoons of honey, and 1 tablespoon of pistachio paste going into a bowl. I made this myself, saved me about $25, boiling water with pistachios in it and macerating it to a pulp. All of these dry ingredients then get thoroughly combined. I then added 4 egg whites, or 115 grams, a little bit at a time, whisking constantly until it was all combined. Now at this point, it looked pretty promising. It looked like the beginning of a normal cake batter, and it really smelled like pistachios. Made sure to give my bowl a good scrape every once in a while to make sure everything got to know each other. And once the eggs met my dry stuff, I put some more dry stuff in my now wet stuff, starting with 45 grams of plain flour and a pinch of baking powder. I mixed that until just combined and then gave my bowl another good scrape. And after that, I mixed in 65 grams of melted unsalted butter. Now, if you think this looks like a lot of butter, I thought the exact same thing, and to be honest, I really think it was. I mean, it was exactly 65 grams like the book instructed, and it was room temperature, and it was still sloshing around in there. But when it was all said and done, it just looked like a really thin cake batter, so I was pretty happy. The financier batter then went into a piping bag so I could pipe it into my mini silicone financier mold. Now, my lovely book did not give me exact measurements for how big these molds needed to be, so I just Amazoned mini financier molds, and these were pretty tiny. I was very curious how these were going to bake because of the size of the molds and the butter content in this batter. I really did not want these to turn into French fries, but I filled the molds 3/4 of the way full and said a prayer. Outside of the outrageous amount of melted butter in these, this batter was so delicate, and I think it's because it was mostly butter and egg whites. It was incredibly hard to pipe this into the molds without making a gigantic mess, so I decided to clean up after myself before putting these in the oven. Now, this recipe also called for Amarena cherries, which I could not find anywhere. I couldn't even find bar cherries at my local Walmart, so I went with fresh cherries, which I think was the beginning of my downfall with this recipe. These cherries were ginormous. I knew they had a huge moisture content, and the cakes were so tiny compared to these ginormous cherries that I was just dunking in there with reckless abandon. But at this point, we were in too deep. I finished putting the cherries in the molds and popped those bad boys in the oven for what was supposed to be 10 minutes. I was clearly way too optimistic about how this was going to turn out for me. Eventually, 10 minutes passed, 12 minutes passed, 16 minutes passed, and they still looked very pale. They say animals have a sixth sense, and Luna could tell that these were not right, that this was not going to turn out well for me. Eventually, we reached the 19-minute mark, and I knew that something had to give. They still looked very white and almost porous, and against my better judgment, I opened the oven to check.
Those don't look right.
I checked one more time at the 22-minute mark, and then eventually at 25 minutes, 15 minutes longer than instructed, I pulled them out. The first thing I noticed is that they were not green. I kind of anticipated that, given that I had made my own pistachio paste, but they didn't really look like they were supposed to. They were really tiny, and my oven cooks unevenly, so the outside ones looked done and the inside ones still looked very pale. Now, I have a bone to pick with silicone molds. I think they make your bakes look super precise and pretty, and after you use them the first time, they're fine. But I had this issue when I cooked my raspberry financiers. It doesn't matter if you wash the mold beforehand. The food smells weird the first time you bake in these silicone molds. I couldn't tell if I was going crazy or if I was smelling burnt pistachios instead, but I swear I smelled some sort of weird silicone smell that I probably poisoned myself and my family with. Outside of the weird stink, the financiers looked okay. Like I said, the ones in the middle were not nearly as cooked as the ones on the outside, and you could tell that those cherries had so much moisture that they just soaked the middle of those financiers, so some of them fell apart right in the middle. They were technically baked all the way through, but a lot of them looked very light, and I was not thrilled with the turnout. You could tell the butter settled to the bottom of a lot of them, and they have that weird texture that comes with baking things in silicone, like it's almost too smooth. They felt weird in my mouth and I did not like it. Cherries were great though. The corner bodega had some great ripe cherries. So, they don't taste like pistachio. They taste kind of like the first financiers I made. I'm trying to smell really hard for the pistachio and I can't even smell it. The first thing you get is the cherry. And then really sad cake after. But you know what? Babe Ruth didn't hit every pitch that was thrown to him, so I am just extra determined to really knock it out of the park next time. In the battle of man versus financier, this time financier won. I'll see you guys next time.